a time in the Bible when there was a lot of different people that were disobedient. They were disobedient. Can anybody remember something from our last stories? It might not be exactly how they disobeyed, but something from our last stories, the last 3 weeks. Do you remember something? What do you remember, Stacia? They wanted a king. That's right. They wanted a king. And who was their king already? Who was their king already? Esther, do you know that? God was their king. So did they need a king? No. But they wanted a king that was, what was the difference? Well, God helped them. God fought their battles for them. Okay? Carlos, I'm doing that. So they wanted a king that was, there's a certain word. Do you remember what it is? Oh, you were here. What is it? A king that was human? That's true, but there's a certain phrase. They wanted to do one that was, go ahead and try. Right here with them. Yeah. What do you think? No. Like all the other people. Remember? They wanted a king like everybody else had a king. Okay? That was right. Well, God is alive. But they wanted a king like everybody else. And remember we said that just because everybody else is doing stuff, it's not always the right thing to want to do. Right? So they disobeyed and they asked for a king. Now, do you remember the name of the man who became their king? Remember the name of the man who became their king. It's a name that has 4 letters in it. It's a name that has 4 letters in it, and it starts with the letter S. The name of the man that only has 4 letters in it, starts with S. Aiden, do you remember? Samuel, S-A-M-U-E-L. That's 6. Samuel had to anoint him king, and Samuel continued to be the prophet and priest, but he didn't judge because this man became king. Do you remember now? Saul. Somebody was whispering very loud in the back. That's right. Saul was their king. Now, one other thing we want to remember. We got to remember this. Who was, do you remember the family that was really disobedient? Dad must not have taught his kids well, and the boys did not obey God. They were the priests before Samuel. This is 3 weeks back. Do you remember who, some names, maybe just one name of the priests before Samuel? And their family was disobedient. You want to try it? Who? Israelites. They were all Israelites. So they're all Israelites. But the name of the priest, oh, maybe I should show you a picture. Maybe that'll help you. Okay. Remember, this is the priest. And this is the priest who didn't obey. This is the priest who didn't obey. And this is Samuel. Okay. Remember that? And this is the priest who didn't obey. And this is Samuel. We remember the name of this man who didn't, his family. Remember it now, Carlos? Eli, that's right. Eli and his sons. They were the family that were not real obedient. Now today, so we've had 3 lessons about different people, different ways that the people of Israel were disobedient. And today we're going to find out about Saul, the king. And he was disobedient also. Now there was three things in today's lesson that I want us to try to remember. It's going to help me tell the story. First of all, Saul did not wait long enough. Samuel told him something to do, and he did not wait long enough. We're going to talk about that. And then Saul was very foolish and prideful. And then the last thing is that Saul did not obey all the way. And we're going to see what happened to Saul because he disobeyed. You know what? All of us can choose to obey or disobey, right? We can choose whether we're going to obey or we're going to disobey. But we can't choose what's going to happen if we disobey him. Just like Adam and Eve. God told Adam and Eve that if they ate of the tree, they would be punished. Both Adam and Eve decided to go ahead and eat, but they couldn't decide to eat and not be punished, could they? As soon as they decided they were going to eat, they were punished. And the same is true all the time. If we can choose whether we're going to obey or disobey, but we can't choose what's going to happen, how we're going to get punished if we disobey. Now Saul, the king, does anybody remember the name of the people that were Israelites' enemies right now in our stories recently? They had a god that looked like a remember? They had the god Dagon, and they fought against Israel and actually captured Israel's Ark of the Covenant. Remember what those people were? What was their names? I don't think you remember. I'm just going to say it was the Philistines. Remember the Philistines? The Philistines were the enemies of the Israelites, and they were gathered together, a whole bunch of them, and Saul now was the king, so he had to defend Israel against the Philistines, and he had 3,000 men to fight against them. And Samuel, and he is still in our story today, Samuel told Saul, go to Gilgal and wait there for 7 days, and I will come, we will sacrifice to God, and I will tell you what you need to do. So Saul was waiting there at Gilgal. He waited 1 day, and then the second day, Samuel wasn't there. And then the third day he waited, and the fourth day, and the fifth day. Each one of these days, the men that he had around him were getting scareder and scareder. Is that a word? We're going to say it was, because more Philistines were coming, and they were seeing all the Philistines, and some of them were leaving. They were going home. They said, I don't want to fight against all those Philistines because I'm going to die. And so Saul had 3,000 and fewer soldiers. And then Saul waited till the fifth day, and they were probably sitting there, what is wrong with Saul? He's supposed to be our strong king. He's supposed to lead us to battle. Now, what could Saul have told the men? He could have told them something. He could have told them that we have to wait until the man of God comes and tells us what God wants us to do. He could have told them that, but he didn't. But he was waiting. He was thinking, where is Samuel? On the sixth day? Was Samuel there on the sixth day? No, he wasn't there. Finally, the seventh day came, and Samuel wasn't there first thing in the morning. And Saul, somebody must have come to Saul and said, Saul, all the soldiers are leaving. We're not going to be able to fight if we don't have any soldiers. And he's like, that's true, and it's the seventh day, but we can't fight until we make a sacrifice. So bring me a burnt offering and some peace offerings, and I will make the sacrifice. And so Saul, he didn't wait until Samuel came. He just decided to go ahead himself, and he offered a burnt sacrifice. Now Saul was the king. Was Saul a priest? No, he was not the priest. Samuel was the one that was supposed to make sacrifices, not Saul. And you know what happened? As soon as Saul finished, who do you think showed up? Samuel. Samuel came on the seventh day, just like he said, but just not soon enough for Saul. Saul was impatient, is a big word. Saul did not wait. Have you ever been told to wait for something, and you were like, I can't wait? If you don't wait, is that obeying? No, it's disobedience. And that Saul could not wait. He was impatient, and he went ahead and offered the sacrifice. And Samuel walked up and said, Saul, what are you doing? And Saul said, well, everybody was leaving, and I knew I couldn't go to battle without offering a sacrifice, and you never came, so I just went ahead and did it myself. Well, that is not right. And Samuel told him that. He said, Saul, God had thought that he would make your sons king after him, but you disobeyed, and your sons will not be king after you. Saul must not have went to fight the Philistines after that, because by this time he only had 600 soldiers. That's a lot less than the 3,000 he had. The Philistines, they kept gathering. They were over across the valley. Now, Saul had a son. He had many sons, but one of his sons' name was Jonathan. And Jonathan did trust God. Saul, he just kind of depended on his own strength, and he did his own thing. He couldn't wait for Samuel to come. He did whatever he wanted almost all the time. But Jonathan knew God, and he trusted God. Jonathan had a sword, and he had a man with him, and he said to this man, he said, these Philistines are all over. But if we trust God, God can beat lots of Philistines, whether there's one of us or hundreds of us. How about me and you? We're going to go over there and we're going to fight some Philistines. So, Jonathan and his armor bearer, they said, all right, let's go. Now, they started going, and before they got there, Jonathan said, now stop. We want to make sure that God is with us in this. That's different than Saul, isn't it? Jonathan said, we want to make sure that God is with us in this. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to get close enough to the Philistines so that they can see us. And when they see us, they're either going to say, hey, what you doing down there? Let us come down there and we'll talk with you. Or they'll say, come on up here and let's talk. Now, if they say, wait there, let us come down and we'll talk with you, then we know that God doesn't want us to fight against them. But if they say, come on up here and let's talk, we know that God has given them to us and He's going to give us a great victory. So they kept going and they got close to where the Philistines were, and pretty soon one of the Philistines said, hey, look, there's two guys down there. And they're all standing around there and they said, hey, who are you? And I don't know what they said, but they said, we're down here. And he said, come on up here, let's talk. Oh, what did that mean to Jonathan? That meant that God was going to give him the victory. So Jonathan and his armor bearer, they crawled up. The Bible says they crawled up on their hands and their knees. They crawled up on all fours. And Jonathan must have had his sword dangling there. And he still crawled up on all fours. And by the time they got up there, then they went after those Philistines and they killed the 20 men that were up there. The two of them killed 20 men up there. And then God sent an earthquake and the earth trembled and all the Philistines started leaving and running and even fighting against each other. And Saul and his army were back, and they looked and they said, what is going on over there? The Philistines, they're running. Somebody must have left the camp. Who's not here? So they went looking around, and who did they figure out was not there? Who was not there in the Israel? So Jonathan. He said, Jonathan and his armor bearer aren't here. Saul said, now listen up. God is going to give us, we're going to beat these Philistines. Nobody should eat anything. Nobody eat anything until I get the victory over these Philistines. Now does that make sense? But that's what Saul said. He said, nobody eats anything until I get the victory over these Philistines. And they went out and they did. They beat a lot of Philistines. But after a while, they got really, really tired. Why do you think they got tired? They didn't have any food. They didn't have any food, and so they didn't have any energy. And finally, they had to stop fighting the Philistines. But they did get a great victory that day. But at the end of the day, Saul found out that Jonathan had eaten some food. Jonathan, he was going along, and they were going through the woods, and he saw some honey on the ground, and he reached out and got some honey, and he got strength from that honey, and he was able to go fight some more. Well, Saul, he found out that Jonathan had disobeyed him. Now, why had Jonathan disobeyed him? Well, no. What do you think? No. No, that's not why. Where was Jonathan when Saul gave the order?
In the woods.
He was up there fighting. He wasn't even around. He didn't hear Saul give the order that nobody should eat. So he's going along fighting. And he saw those in the woods. He got that honey and was able to fight some more. He didn't even know that his dad had given that order. But his dad said, Jonathan, you have disobeyed my order. You're going to die.
How is he going to die?
He was going to have him killed for disobeying. Now, does that make any sense? That's foolish. That was foolish. And you know what happened? Here Saul is saying, he's saying Jonathan should die because he disobeyed. And all the people raise up against him and they say, Jonathan's not going to die. It was because of Jonathan that we had a great victory today. And so the people told their king that they weren't going to do what he said. That's kind of trouble. If you're a king, your people are supposed to do what you say, right? But he was foolish. Saul was foolish, and he made a foolish command, and then he was going to try to carry out a foolish punishment, and his people said, no, we're not going to do that. So we've seen how Saul would not wait. He was disobedient. He wouldn't wait. And we've seen how he was foolish. and prideful. He wanted he wanted everybody the victory for himself. And he didn't win that victory. Who gave the victory? Well, Jonathan was the one that somebody used to give the victory. Who gave the victory? Remember Jonathan said, if they say come up here, we'll know what? That God is going to give us the victory. So God gave him the victory. Finally, the last story about Saul today, Samuel came to Saul and said, Saul, a long time ago when God was leading the people of Israel out of Egypt through the wilderness, the Amalekites came along and they attacked the back part of all the children. They attacked all the women and the children and the people that were old and couldn't move hardly. They attacked them. Now that is bad, isn't it? They went after, they were with their swords. They attacked the people of Israel, but they didn't attack the soldiers in Israel. They attacked the women and the children and the old people. And God said, because they had done it, now God used Joshua to give them a victory. But God said, because they had done that, they were cursed, and that he was going to destroy them. Well, Samuel said to Saul, now's the time that God wants you to destroy the people of Amalek. That was the people that had done it, the Amalekites. Go find the Amalekites and destroy them, because God said that they should be destroyed way back from when they attacked our women and our children. And when you go to destroy them, you are to kill everybody in the whole city and to kill all their animals. Nothing that breathes should live. Now, that's pretty clear to understand, isn't it? Now, we might not understand why God does that, but God is always right. And God said to do it, so it's something that should be done, right? We should obey God, whatever he tells us. Saul went and got his army, and he found the city of the Amalekites, and they were killing the whole city. And some of the men came to Saul and said, now Saul, do you think that we really need to kill all these sheep and the cows? We could probably use those as sacrifices to God. What do you think Saul should say? What should Saul say? He should say no, right? Because God said kill everything. And the men were like, well, we could save these and give them to God. And what should he say? No. God said everything. But he said, well, it's probably okay if we just save some of the ones that are really good. And we'll go ahead and sacrifice those to God when we get back. Then Saul said, now, is there anybody left living? And they said, no, there's nobody left living except the king. Here's the king. Now, Saul must have felt like, I can have the king be my own servant. Because should Saul have done that? Should he let the king live? No, because God said everything that breathes. Saul let the king live. He brought some animals back. And he obeyed most of the way. Right? He obeyed most of the way. But he didn't obey all the way. And so that's called disobedience. Even if you obey most of the way, if you don't do everything, God says that's disobedience. Saul was so proud, he built a pillar. He put a pillar up and had somebody carve something on it, a pillar, just to congratulate himself on the big victory that he got. And he started coming back and he brought, what is he bringing back to Israel? Sheep and cows and the king. And he comes back, and who do you think he runs into? What man does he come to and he meet on his way back from beating the Amalekites? Who does he meet? Samuel, that's right. And so he sees Samuel and says, Samuel, I have done everything that God told me to do. Had he done everything that God told him to do? No, he hadn't. But he said, we beat the Amalekites, and I've done everything God told me to do. And you know what Samuel said? Samuel said, but I hear animals making noises. What are the sheep? I hear the sheep making noise, and I hear the oxen making, you know how sheep go, blah, blah. He could hear that. And he heard the oxen go, roo, roo. He heard the cows. He says, what's this noise I hear? What did Saul say? He said, well, we wanted to give those as sacrifices to God. You know what Samuel told him? Saul, God doesn't want your sacrifice if you're being disobedient. It says, sacrifices don't mean anything if you're being disobedient. If you haven't obeyed, sacrifices don't mean anything. God doesn't want that. You have rebelled against God. And then, guess who walked up while they were in the middle of that conversation? The king. The other king. So Samuel's like, who is that? Saul said, this is King Agag. He's going to be my servant. Samuel's like, you're supposed to kill everybody. Samuel told Saul, he said, Saul, because you have disobeyed God, not only is your children not going to be king, but God is going to take the kingdom away from you. You will not be king. God is going to give his kingdom, the kingdom of Israel, to another man who deserves it. He's taken it away from you. Saul said to Samuel, oh, I've sinned. I shouldn't have done that. But he never really repented. He just would make excuses. He says, so I've sinned, but can you come with me and make sacrifices? You think Samuel wanted to go with Saul and sacrifice these animals? No, he wasn't going to do that. He says, no, I'm not going to go with you. Finally, Saul grabbed him grabbed his robe, and Samuel pulled away from him, and Saul pulled and tore Samuel's garment. And Samuel said, just like you have tore that, my garment, God is going to tear the kingdom out of your hands because you're disobedient. It's a serious thing to be obedient to God. We should always be obedient. Remember what we said at the beginning? We can choose whether we're going to obey or disobey, but we can't choose what punishment we're going to have when we disobey. We should, all of us, purpose in our heart, we should all determine that we are going to obey. Who's it that we should obey? The Bible tells us. The Bible says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. We should obey our parents, for sure. All of us, though. Every single one of us in here, the Bible tells us who we should obey. It tells parents how they can obey. It tells children who they should obey. It tells employers how they can obey. It tells people who work how they can obey. It tells wives how they can obey. It tells husbands how they can obey. The Bible tells everyone. All of us have things to obey. And if we don't obey, what can we expect from God? We can expect to be punished, right? We can expect to be punished. Now, none of us we're not going to have our kingdom taken away from us because we don't have a kingdom, do we? We don't know how exactly God will punish us, but we know if we disobey, God will punish us. And so rather than do that, rather than disobey, we should do what our verse says, right? We should fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all our heart. It's like our verse says. Fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart. So let's remember that. Let's remember, and this week, tomorrow when you go to church, when your teacher tells you to do something and you don't feel like doing that, what should you do? What you want, or should you obey? Obey. And the next day, and when you come home and your mom says to do something, or your dad tells you to do something and you don't feel like doing that, what should you do? Would you do what you feel like, or should you do what your parents say? Obey your parents. And then when you go to school and your teacher says, all right, it's time to do something, and it's just that thing that you don't like to do, and you could just kind of just sit there at your desk and do nothing. Should you sit there at your desk and do nothing, or should you do what your teacher says? You should obey, right? So we need to learn and remember to always obey. All right, it's time for a song maybe, and then a story, or you ready for the story? Song and a story.